changing the belt on a KRX 1000. Short extension, long extension. The universal helps when getting the 10mm bolts out of the housing. 10mm socket, 12mm socket, 14mm socket. All tools required. Do have a stick that'll help pry the belt when you're rolling it around off the secondary and the primary. 10mm, remove all the housing bolts. Once that's removed, there's a trick. You do not have to remove the shock. You can pull it out, drop the back down, top up. Once you clear the arm, rotate it down, it will slide right out. All right, removing this, there's two 10mm bolts right here. Top arm coming in, 12mm nut, bottom 12mm nut. Remove those using your extension and 3/8 ratchet. Slide it out. Rotate it a little bit counterclockwise and it'll come right out. In order to spread the clutch, right here in the top bolt for the motor mount, you can pull that out. It's a 10mm by 1.25, 14mm socket. Put it in, spread your clutch. Once you spread your clutch, you can use a stick, but it will spread it, or you can rotate it off by hand. That simple.
Nice.
All right, so we got the new belt, we got the old belt. Minimum width is 36.8, and we're right at minimum width on this belt and everything. We're gonna keep it as a trail spare for right now. But when you pull it off, pay close attention to direction if you plan on reusing that belt. Arrows on this belt pointing forward. And so if you're gonna reuse this belt, you gotta put it back on in the same direction. They have memory, they have the fibers, learn the direction the belt is going, so you wanna make sure you do that.
What about the new belt? Is it directional?
The new belt is non-directional, no arrows. We are gonna set it up so writing out same as the other, but it would not matter on this new belt. The new belt is about 250 thousandths wider than the other one. There is some hourglassing on this old belt. By hourglassing, we mean it is going in, coming out, going in, coming out. And that's from where we got it wet and we started spinning on the clutch. You can see we've worn in pretty good right here. You can still see the fiber loop on the outside right here. So we've hourglassed the inside of that belt pretty good. Like I said, it's a decent enough spare that would get you off of a trail somewhere if you're stuck down. Worth keeping right now. Weren't seeing any negative effects other than it wouldn't keep up with the Polaris anymore. But we're gonna go back with the new belt and we'll show y'all how to put it on.
All right. After blowing your housing out thoroughly, make sure your writing is where you can read it. Slide it in, start it, rotate, pops right in. After the belt's on, release your clutch.
Make it like you did it really quick.
Come back up. Back in your housing. Two ooga-doogas. Once you put your belt on and release your pressure back, I would recommend spinning it to seat the belt. If not, the belt's going to be extremely loose. When you go to take off, it's going to joke and put a stretch on the belt. The two bolts, 10mm heads, go between the primary and the secondary. It's kind of a tight squeeze to wiggle back in. There are guide pins where the 12mm nut comes off.
make sure your primary cover is on good and seated before you start putting it on, because the outside of that primary guard is your bearing for that primary shaft. So the bearing fits on the primary shaft right there. That's what helps stabilize that
Bearing
shaft.
inside there, huh?
Yep.
All right. After taking the air hose, blowing everything out good, I've seen some folks take water, soapy water, and wash it good. I'm not a fan of putting water in there just because of the active bearing in the cover and housing, so I've just blown it out. You can put the cover back in, you start back up, rotate through, drop the back down. And you might want to make sure you go in even before you check your belt and check your torque on these bolts. I found that every one of mine were loose from the factory, and I believe that's how I got mud and water in here to ruin my factory belt.